Quenisha nor John Kinney. I can't find their telephone numbers.
So I think what will have to happen, if they join us late, we will permit that, but they, depending on, if they arrive before the end of the opening statement segment, they will be allowed to make an opening statement. If they don't arrive before the end of the opening statement, they will not be able to make an opening statement. So I'll fit them into the Q&A part.
Anita, I will send these by chat to you.
Thank you.
And everyone will have a 2-minute closing statement with the same guidelines. And anything else that anyone have any questions?
You have any questions? Yeah.
Nope.
Nope.
You want to make sure that they have a way of informing the audience their contact information, just in case all questions aren't answered, and if anybody in the audience wants to reach them again. So make sure that you make accessible to the audience your contact information. You may want to put that in the chat or something.
Yeah, and at your closing statements, you include in your closing statements how to do. Oh, see, I talked about everybody. Did I introduce Regina Guillory, who you can't see but is managing the chat. So Regina, who's with the 100 Organization of Black Women, is going to be monitoring the chat, and she will copy over to Alice questions from the audience that may come in.
And I'll relay those to you orally.
Okay, so are there any other questions before we get started? Nope. All right, good.
Well, I wanted to say something else to the candidates.
Yes.
I'm actually an Oakland resident, but I fondly consider Vallejo a sister city, and I'm very honored to be here on behalf of my organization and chapter. And this is very exciting for us. We are delighted with this partnership with the League, and I wish each of you as candidates good luck in your bid. And it's a pleasure to meet each of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, over to you, Anita.
So Niles and Regina, you're going to want to get rid of your video.
Am I on? Hello?
You're good, Anita. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to get on.
You're on. We see you. We hear you.
Oh, I don't see me or hear me. Okay, so we ready? Okay. Good morning. Welcome to the League of Women Voters Vallejo Mayoral Candidate Forum. I will be your host this morning. My name is Anita Robertson, and I am Forum Coordinator. Today, we have the candidates for mayor who are here to present their views for the future of Vallejo. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little something about the League of Women Voters, Solano County, and our co-support sponsor, National Coalition of Black Women, Oakland Bay Area chapter. The League of Women Voters is a chapter of the League of Women Voters California and the National League of Women Voters. The mission of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Inc. is to advocate on behalf of Black women and girls to promote leadership development, gender equality, and in the areas of health, education, and economic empowerment. The League of Women Voters does not support nor oppose any political party or candidate. The purpose of these candidate forums is to allow voters an opportunity to hear candidates respond to questions from their constituents about issues facing their community. All verified candidates have been invited to participate. Our moderator will outline the format and rules for this event. I'd like to introduce our team who have worked to make this forum happen, beginning with our my co-coordinator, the president of the Solano County League, Niles Minder. Next is our moderator, Alice Freed, our chat manager, Regina Guillory. I'm sorry, our timekeeper, Linda De La Isla, and our technician, Susan Newhouse. This candidate forum is being held as a Zoom meeting. Additionally, it is being broadcast live on YouTube and recorded. If you are on YouTube live now, thank you for joining us. And please feel free to put questions for the candidates into the YouTube chat box. Questions submitted during the forum will be screened and sorted for appropriateness and relevance. Since similar questions may be consolidated, questions of a personal or inflammatory nature will be discarded. You should be aware, if you are on YouTube watching this, the candidates cannot see you or your comments. For those on Zoom side, if you have a YouTube window open, please ensure that the speaker is mute. Otherwise, you will have an echo that will interfere with our audio clarity. If you have a feedback or suggestions for the League of Women Voters of Solano County regarding any candidate forum, we encourage you to email us. You can find our email address on our website along with other valuable information. The views expressed this morning by the candidates are theirs and not the views of the League of Women Voters. The recordings of this forum will be posted on the League of Women Voters website YouTube channel. I'm sorry, the YouTube channel. Additionally, there will be links to all our recorded forums on our website. The copyright for this forum belongs to the League of Women Voters of Solano County, which reserves all rights to the recordings of this forum. No portion of the contents of this forum may be reproduced or otherwise used without the prior written permission and consent from the League of Women Voters. No portion of this recording may be used to promote one candidate or oppose another in any way. Additionally, no portion of this forum may be used to imply that the League of Women Voters endorses any candidate. If the recordings of this forum is to be used, it must be used in its entirety. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, Solano County, and the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, I would like to thank the candidates for taking the time to be here this morning and would encourage the audience to reach out to the candidates if you have more questions. Running for office is difficult, and they all deserve our appreciation for their willingness to run and to serve their community by being an elected official. A virtual event like this takes a lot of planning and a number of people behind the scenes. We thank them for all their hard work. Thank you to the audience and the members, League members, to have submitted questions for this forum. I would like to thank them all. It takes a village. The League of Women Voters, Solano County, has a policy that the moderator should not be a constituent of the candidates who are speaking at the forum. Our moderator, Alice Freed, is a Vacaville resident and a member of the League's board of directors. She has graciously enough to be our moderator for this event. Now, let's get started. Thank you for watching. Now, Alice, you take over. Power to the people.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alice
Morning.
Freed, and like the wonderful host of our event said, I will be the moderator for this forum, which is co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters and the Oakland Bay Area chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women. I consider this a civic partnership made in the image of a working democracy. The League, having been created to educate women about who and what to vote for after winning their fight for the right to vote, and the Coalition of 100 Black Women, established in a New York living room to assess the problems and opportunities for Black women in the wake of the turbulent 1960s. Today, both are national organizations and have joined together here today to foster the principles of equality and opportunity in economic, social, and political arenas through education and advocacy, something that I very much am proud to be a part of. So on behalf of both of these great organizations, I'd like to welcome the mayoral candidates who are with us this morning. Hakeem Brown, M. Avenel Hanley Mills. We invited Mr. McKinney. I'm not sure if he's made it yet. Robert McConnell and Cornisha Williams Bailey. All verified candidates were invited, and I believe all are here this morning. We appreciate their taking time to appear on this forum. Now, this event is called a forum and not a debate. The difference is that in a forum, each candidate will be asked to respond to the same questions. They will not speak to each other, but rather they will speak to you, the audience. We have asked the candidates not to refer to one another. We've asked them not to mention endorsements or any particular affiliations, but to focus on what they will bring to the position of Mayor of Vallejo. The candidates will be given 2 minutes for their opening statements and 1.5 minutes to answer the questions. The order in which the candidates will make their opening statements has been decided by the League. After their opening statements, the candidates will rotate the order of responding. In this way, each candidate will answer at least one question first and one question last. At the conclusion of the Q&A section, the candidates will make closing statements, 2-minute closing statements. The candidates will speak in reverse order for those statements. We've asked that they give you, the audience, a way to contact them should you have further questions. Okay, so now let's get ready. We are going to begin our opening statements with candidate Hakeem Brown.
Thank you, ma'am. And I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for putting this forum on. My name is Vallejo Councilmember Hakeem Brown. I have a lot of titles, but most importantly, I'm a Vallejo native. I grew up in Vallejo. I went to school here. This is where I make my home, and this is where my family makes its home. In the last 10 years, we have watched Vallejo move in the wrong direction. Due to lack of investment in economic development and public safety, we've seen a high number of police-related shootings, really a record number of police-related shootings, a record number of murders, a record number of sexual assaults, as well as lack of opportunity and lack of investment in education. All due to poor leadership. That's why I'm running for mayor. I think that today we will hear a lot of good ideas about how do we solve some of these issues in Vallejo. But I'm the only candidate who will talk about real action. You can always count on what someone's going to do based on what they have done.
60 seconds.
Thank you. Though a lot of us the candidates will talk about public safety, I'm the only candidate who's actually took the time to meet with the police chief regularly to talk about police reform. Though a lot of candidates will talk about education, I'm the only candidate to actually spend time in Vallejo schools, not only mentoring kids, but also spending time with administration to learn how the city can support our kids. You're going to hear people talk about housing, but I'm the only candidate who actually passed historic rent control ordinance in the city of Vallejo. In 2020, we need a leader who's going to take action, not words. Thank you.
Okay. Our next candidate is Ms. M. Avenel Hanley Mills. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good morning to the League of Women Voters and to the community. My name is Avnel Hanley Mills, and I'm a transformative advocate. I've lived in Vallejo for over 21 years. I chose Vallejo as my home. As a Caribbean American immigrant of African descent, I think it's important to look at the way the city moves forward from a transformative point of view. Transforming is from the core, creating a foundation to move forward. As a city, we're in a new, unique path to the next movement, which must be forward in unity, prosperity, and community enrichment. Our city needs social change. That's important to how we move forward for success. The systemic inequity and inequality cycle must cease. We must begin to create a team
60
of
seconds.
government to prioritize the city's growth, and that is critical. Our city's violence is at a historic high. We must value the lives of our citizens and our community. Change is imperative for our city, and all collective partnership of collaboration is needed. Thank you for this opportunity for our community to have a choice in how we can choose our leaders to bring our city forward as a community, not individuals, because success does not acquire by one person or two persons. It's acquired by everyone putting their feet forward and saying that we are a team and success is what our focus is. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. John B. Kinney. Is he here?
Yes, I'm
Mr.
here. I
Kinney?
just unmuted. Can you hear me?
Great.
Okay, you
Can
have
hear
2
me?
minutes for your opening statement, sir.
2 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And the time, you weren't here for the introduction for the rules.
Yes, yes. Thank you. Sorry that I'm just a touch late here.
Watch the time.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much, League of Women Voters. Thank you for all your work. Reason I was late was I was looking for all the different work that you had and I couldn't find the Zoom invitation. So I finally found that and thank you very much. As mayor, I'd like to tell you what I would prioritize first. That's economic and small community building, especially rebuilding after this COVID catastrophe we have, as well as this climate catastrophe. And that's why I would like to tell you that I brought to the city of Vallejo a clean new built energy, which the status quo city council wouldn't do a thing about. We worked at it for 3 or 4 months. We had 20 or 30 people coming in front of City Hall, speaking daily, speaking every time they had a city council event. We sent multiple emails. We went by. Finally, we had to bring in Al Gore's Climate Reality Project and some
60
people down
seconds.
from the Progressive Alliance down in Richmond to go directly to the mayor, directly to the city council manager, brought it back to us, to the city hall, and we got it passed unanimously. I would also like to reimagine safety and community policing for all Valleans and to be increased youth and educational involvement. Of course, we need law enforcement, but we also need to have participation from the entire community. We also need prevention, we need intervention, and most importantly, we need enrichment and empowerment to the community directly. We'd also like to make a more beautiful Vallejo. I've worked as a teacher, I own my own school. I've helped thousands of students get into high school. In 2008, I spent 3 months on the ground working with
10
Obama
seconds.
to turn Ohio for that election, because I think it is so imperative for our nation to change course. Equally, I feel the same thing about Vallejo. We're way off track and we need to get back on track. Thank
Time's
you
up.
very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Next will be Mr. McConnell. Mr. McConnell, you have Mr. Robert McConnell. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, especially to the League of Women Voters. I know you're stewards and dedicated to the principles of good government, and as am I, because that is what motivated me to seek my education in public administration and my job experience. And what your job experience is, your background, your record, your everything is what you bring to the mayor's office. Fortunately, I have experience as having worked for the State Personnel Board, the Deputy District Attorney, the City of San Jose. I've been on law review where we track bills through the state legislature. I'm a trial lawyer with an emphasis in financial services. I'm a mediator trained with the American Arbitration Association. I was a law clerk at the U.S. Court of Appeals in San Francisco, where I helped spearhead and put through a reformation of the criminal appellate process. So I have experience all across government, which is going to be things that I bring to the mayor's office. I've created and profitably sold one business. I still operate two in this city. I work for the government, but my family has been in private practice, and I understand how government works and needs to improve. A mayor is different than just being a council member. The mayor is the face of the Vallejo government, the negotiator on behalf of the city with the other mayors and supervisors, as well as the state legislators. What is done on council is only the surface of what a mayor must be capable of doing behind the scenes, and more importantly, out in public. Trust is an important requirement of this job. I will perform that job knowing that I will do at all times will reflect our city's image and our reputation. So all of those skills I bring to the mayor's office, and I intend to accomplish a lot of change, especially in the police department and our economic bases, using my financial skills as an attorney who has advised clients for decades. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McConnell. All right, our next speaker is Carnisha Williams Bailey. Is she here?
Someone's beeping.
Someone's beeping. It's not me. Okay, the beeping has stopped. And we don't see Miss Williams Bailey. Okay, so we're going to go right into our questions. And the first candidate up for questions is Miss Avenel Hanley Mills. Where is she?
She's here.
Okay.
Here.
First question is, what are the top 3 issues facing the city of Vallejo?
The top 3 issues are infrastructure, peace, and safety, and community enrichment. When I speak about infrastructure, I speak about the way the government functions. We've had a government system that works from the perspective of crisis management instead of preventative behavior, and that's what we need. We need to look at our city functioning from a preventative perspective rather than always constantly being in crisis management. Peace and safety. I mean, peace and safety comes from many different areas. We have a high crime rate.
5 seconds.
And also community enrichment. We do need to address how we value our citizens and the type of activities and structure and resources that we bring for all members of our city. And so those are 3 things. I mean, there's many different subtitles for all 3. And, answering them in 2 minutes, it's a long thing. But what I think it's important for us to look at, how we can bring our city together, united from all perspectives to address all 3 areas of these challenges. And we also have successes in those areas
10
too.
seconds.
And my way of addressing this is looking at our successes and positive to address our challenges. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, same question. What are the top 3 issues facing the city of Vallejo? And that's to Mr. John McKinney. You're next up. Mr. McKinney, you have 2
No,
minutes.
it's not McKinney. Excuse me. It's Kenny, please.
Kenny, I'm sorry. I
Thank
apologize.
you very much. Not McKinney.
I am so sorry. Thanks for correcting me.
I took 2 cases to the Supreme Court, and one of them, a judge called me McKinney, and it took me about 3 hearings to get him to finally change it back to my real name, Kenny.
Okay, Kenny.
Yes, 3 key issues. Again, it would be economic empowerment, number 1, to the community. We have to rebuild after COVID. We really have to support all these businesses, which have sacrificed so much through this crisis. Labeled to that, look at these wildfires just burning out of control. And again, I brought this directly to the city council and got ignored by the do nothing status quo guys who are running right now against me. We need more jobs, 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 and that's exactly what this would bring. Think of all the solar plant panels we have to put in on residential housing alone, let alone beyond that. Reimagining public safety.
45 seconds.
$50 million are put into our police force right now out of a $110 million budget. And it's gone up from there. So it's over 50% right now. And some of the guys want to run on, almost like Trump, run on a law and order regime where they want to put even more cops out on the street. We need to reimagine it. If only 10 to 20% of the phone calls in are about violent crimes, we need to have more healthcare people out there. We have to have more social care people out there. We need to enrich and empower and beautify our Vallejo. And that is my final key issue. Of
10
course,
seconds.
I've never used this term enrichment until today because I heard Avanella say it. It's a great term. I've always said empowerment, but we need to put our resources into our youth, into our education, making sure our community is united and moving forward for all people, not just for the people at the very top and not just for the police who have guns on their hips. We need to really enrich our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mr. Robert McConnell.
Thank you. My top three priorities are economic enhancement, including beautification of the city with garbage removal and addressing the graffiti, police reform, and also trust in the city government itself. Now, to address the need of economic enhancement, we're going to have to build our tax base. Vallejo has never had an adequate tax base. When I first joined council, we were in bankruptcy. We had about 200 jobs on Mare Island. We now have well over 2,000. We've added business after business after business on Mare Island. We've been able to bring in LED lightings and put solar panels on our roofs. But economic enhancement requires going out in the community and talking one-on-one, which as a salesman experience, I can do.
45 seconds.
The police reform is a very complex issue. I've been looking at Oakland City Charter Section 604 recently as a way of addressing that, along with Honolulu and Los Angeles. These are complex problems, but having been a prosecutor, having done the criminal appellate program at the U.S. Court of Appeals, having been a trial lawyer, I understand the entire process, not just a limited part of it. I also have the experience of having been a combat infantry veteran, so I understand what these people in the field have to go through. Finally, trust. The last 2 years have seen an erosion of the trust in the city government.
10 seconds.
And often I've been in the minority voting against a lot of things, and that's been evidenced by the lack of that trust in this community. It needs to be improved and returned to as it was before.
Time's up. Thank you. Same question to Ms. Williams-Bailey is not here, right? So we'll move on to Mr. Hakeem Brown. What are the top 3 issues facing the city of Vallejo?
Thank you. So number one, that would be public safety. And that's kind of two-part. I think that murder is up 100%. Sexual assault is up 100%. Gun violence and gun shootings are up 300%. And this has largely been ignored by council. We put a cheap police officer on the street for the last 10 years. The other side of that is the amount, when putting a cheap police officer on the street, the amount of police-related shootings. We've seen more young Black men killed in the last 10 years and on prior councils before I got up there watched than we've ever seen in the history of Vallejo. Our youth, we have not as a city made it a point to invest in our youth, invest in education, invest
45 seconds.
Opportunity, and invest in the success of our kids. And last, but definitely not least, is economic development. That drives everything. Lack of economic development has led to lack of affordable housing and housing in general. Not focusing on economic development for the last 10 years has led to our school districts sliding down the drain. A lack of investment in economic development has really only enhanced the systemic racism that exists in our communities without creating opportunities for families and working families to
10
live
seconds.
by the bootstraps. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Starting with the new question, and this time with Mr. John B. Kinney.
Thank you. Thank you.
COVID-19 financial impacts are going to be with us for many years. The city of Vallejo could be facing a budget shortfall due to decreased sales tax revenues. What is your plan to address this critical issue?
This is always one of the most serious problems any government faces is what do you do when there's a budget shortfall? But these are the times when you have to reinvest in the community. We have a bit of a surplus. I hear it's gone down. I hear it was 14 million. Now it's 7 million. Then I heard 5 million was the last I heard several weeks back. Of course, some of that will dwindle, and that's what the city has to do. It has to invest in its citizens. It has to reach in and it has to make sure we are helping these businesses get back on their feet. When that happens, our tax base will go back up again. About 30 to 40% of our tax base right now is already in businesses. It's probably dwindled down to 20, and we're going to have multiple restaurants already have closed, and there's going to be more and more happening. We have to
45 seconds.
Thank you. So that's one place we have to go. We have to build more multiple unit housings. There have been no multiple units built in Vallejo since 2006. Now, we hear people talking about reform now. We hear people talking about economic revitalization, but the guys in city council haven't done a thing about that since 2006. That's just not right. About 40–50% of our revenues come from residential housing. You put more units in there, make sure you're pegging some of those units to the
10
median.
seconds.
Make sure you're giving some grants so that we can get police officers and firefighters and teachers back into this community by giving them grants, and they will start helping our community as well. Instead, we're giving too much.
Time's up, Miss.
Take it outside of our community. Oh,
I'm
sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
All right, so the same question to Mr. Robert McConnell. Should I reread the question?
No, I'm familiar with it. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Our economic recovery at COVID has pretty well stalled, where 88% have gone back to the recovery stat and 23% are not. It's that 23% are most heavily located here in California, and especially in Vallejo, where I see them day to day in my practice. So some of the things we can do. The city of Benicia has organized a grant program to its small businesses downtown who are in trouble. We could establish that with what little money we have available. We need to retain our present businesses, which means the mayor needs to be going out daily and canvassing each and every business here in town, because most business growth comes from retaining business, not new expansion. We need to address land reform as well as economic streamlining. We've done that to a large process, but we need to continue to work on that so that somebody can come in and get an application approved over the counter, and that is happening. We have eliminated fees, but we need to go further. There are a lot of small lots around town that can be developed and need to be developed if they'll pencil out on the financial prospects. But so far, the city has not seen fit to agree with me to reduce fees in that area. We need to work more, especially with our master developer, because they do have the long-term benefit. But shorthand, we're going to have to bring in small businesses. That's why I led the charge to have outdoor dining and got the streamlined process in place, which we now need to waive the $1,000 fee for, or they'll go out of business again when that expires.
Thank you. Same question to Mr. Hakeem Brown.
Can you please repeat the question?
Yes. COVID-19 financial impacts are going to be with us for many years. The city of Vallejo could be facing a budget shortfall due to decreased sales tax revenues. What is your plan to address this critical issue?
Yeah, so I actually hosted COVID-19 workshops for small businesses really at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that one of the things that we have to do is lack of investment in our businesses have led to where we're at today. We can't just address it now. We have to work on that year round. We have to be about economic development, which we haven't done in 10 years. Approving in and outs and fast food places don't really help our economy and don't help our kids. I think that we need to take a hard look at zoning. For too long, we've made excuses why projects don't pencil out. We have to sit there and make sure that we can streamline the process to ensure that they pencil out, because right now a project in Vallejo is
45 seconds.
20 to 30% more time than in every other city around it. So we're not competing, and we have not been. And that's what I'll bring as a small business owner and CEO of my company. I think that that has been ignored in the city of Vallejo. And last but not least, I think that we need to make sure that we have a community benefit package. I was the first council member to propose adding a community benefit package to every major development, including the Nimitz deal, to ensure that everyone has an opportunity, including minority-based businesses, women-based initiatives, as well as local-based
10
businesses,
seconds.
just to ensure that everyone has an opportunity to have a piece of the pie. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanley Mills is next. Do you need to repeat the question for you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. COVID-19 financial impacts are going to be with us for many years. The city of Vallejo could be facing a budget shortfall due to decreased sales tax revenues. What is your plan to address this critical issue?
Thank you. I think it's important for us as a city and as mayor to look at the budget that value our citizens. And in that meaning, looking at business, enrichment, and wellness. We have to think about our citizens in terms of a value of of the value that they bring to our community. And when we look at that, when you value something, you begin to become creative in ways to enhance rich enrichment and to bring overall wellness. I mean, you know, many of my fellow candidates will say amazing and wonderful ideas. And I think it's important, and it shows that we have very
45
skilled and
seconds.
educated people in our community. However, I think when we're not valuing and we're not showing value, some of the ways that we address the city's need and COVID-19 has highlighted some of those needs in terms of our infrastructure, our housing, our education, the small business development, and just city beautification. That's important. And so when we begin to value something, we begin to behave in that way. We begin to speak the language of value. And I think that's important for us to really look at how, as a government team, that we're valuing our citizens in a way that they feel that we know that it matters for the way their overall wellness is being taken care of. Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted to go over a couple of the rules again to make sure that all of the candidates understand. The candidates will not address each other. They will definitely speak to the audience about what they plan to do. And the candidates will not refer to one another, as we mentioned what we're going to do. And we're not to refer to any particular affiliations, but to focus on what we're going to bring to the city as mayor. This is a League of Women Voters, and because we don't take any candidate's position as our own, I just wanted to make sure that that's clear. All right, so now here we go. Principles of equal rights and opportunities are tenets of the League, as well as the Coalition of 100 Black Coalition of 100 Black Women. The next question is, racial equity in law enforcement has been raised as an area of concern. Do you feel this is an issue in Vallejo, and how should it be addressed? And that goes to Ms. Williams-Bailey, but she's not here. So the next, it would be Mr. Hakeem Brown, who will start off with that question.
Yes, I think that that has been an issue. Quite frankly, the causes of it is a council, number one, that never took putting a quality police officer in Black communities. They thought that they could put a cheap officer, inexperienced officer in the Black community, negotiate hard on their contracts. And as our police chief once said to every African-American organization in Solano County, we have to take any officer breathing. That's not a good business plan. I've met with the chief of police every month, twice a month since he's come here. And I'm the only council member to have actually taken the time to reach out to him. I think that we have not invested in our police. I think that we have not held officers accountable.
45 seconds.
I don't think that we've held our city attorney in the past accountable. We even gave her a raise, even though she was there during most amount of police-related shootings. So number one, I think that we have to focus on accountability, transparency, holding people accountable, being competitive and attracting quality officers. Number one, I think that not investing in quality officers is like not investing in brakes. And we have seen the high number of litigation in our community. So I think that that was a poor business plan put together by people who don't
10
understand.
seconds.
And it's really held back the Black community. We have not seen investment in our, we have not seen investment in education and opportunity. And those are just some of the issues that have been plaguing our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question to Ms. Henley Mills. You're up next.
Thank you. Can you repeat the question again, please?
No problem. Racial equity in law enforcement has been raised as an area of concern. Do you feel this is an issue in Vallejo, and how should it be addressed?
Thank you. Yes, I do feel that that's a challenge that our city have in many years. You know, I look at the police officers as peacekeepers, and our city needs peacekeepers. We need to trust that those placed within our midst will keep peace and not enforce violence. Restorative justice is important for our community. Our community needs to heal. We need to look at ourselves from a perspective of understanding that we are valuable, and I value our citizens, and we, as mayor, we must give that attitude and understanding
45
those who are
seconds.
placed in our midst. When you value something, you take care of it. When you understand something, you take care of it. When you show that who you are is part of who I am, you take care of it. And that's the message and attitude as mayor going into a system and a department. Yes, I think that there's restructuring that needs to happen. But for me, transformation, when transformation takes place, it happens at the core. Transforming it comes from the core, and we address many
10
of the
seconds.
challenges that has ended many of our citizens' lives. And that needs to stop, because when you value something, you take care of it. And for
Time's
me,
up.
that's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, same question to Mr. Kinney, Mr. John B. Kinney.
Yes, Rachel.
Should I repeat the question for you?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate that. Yes, racial equity, huge issue. I've been out marching with the NAACP from Ferguson to Jefferson City, and we brought in a whole slate of new laws there. I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to bring someone up. I apologize for that.
That's right.
I was just trying to give my history. My apologies. Okay, let's cut back directly to Vallejo so I don't trip over something else again then. I'm trying to repeat my history, and that comes in with organizations. We have to reimagine safety and community policing here. We have to invest in our community. We have to trust our community. We don't need to spend more and more and more of our budget, already at 50% and rising, on the police force, when only 10 to 20% of those 9/11 calls are actually about violent crimes.
45
We need to
seconds.
go into our people. We need to help out with healthcare. We need to help out with some other things that need to be done, especially youth and education. Again, law enforcement is real, but there's also prevention, there's also intervention, there's also empowerment. And that's what we have to do, is trust in our own community. When the police force gets their budget, so much of it is into the salaries, and they take those salaries outside of our community. We can get much more value out of our people if we
10
invest
seconds.
in the local community, make sure we put our resources into the youth, into our education, into local community policing services, into NGOs and NPOs, nonprofit organizations, which are working full time with the people of the community rather than just for outside police officers brought in. Thank you.
Mr. McConnell, you're up next.
Thank
Should I
you.
repeat the question, or you got it?
No, I'm fine. There's no question at all that the police department needs reform, and the cultural lack of sensitivity and their values is just wrong. And when you have the head of the union for that organization failing to recognize it, I think that sends a huge signal. I'm one who has called for police reform, and I have since 2011. I have done that in many forums throughout those many years. But understanding how to change it also requires that a council member and a mayor understand our city charter and the interrelationship between a city council, city manager form of government with the department.
45 seconds.
Our city charter prevents any individual on council from getting involved in day-to-day activities of the department. We can set some policies, but because of the police privacy laws, there are many that we cannot. So probably 95% of the policy is set in consultation between the city manager, the HR director, and the chief of police. The council has some, but not a lot of ability to control that. One of the things we can advocate for is moving the psychological test of officers from the present end of the process, which is a year process, to the front, so that we screen out people. We are turning down a lot of people, but that's because the police union says they're not suitable. I don't think that that's correct. And that's why we need to revisit the psychological test. There are a whole lot of other things we also need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Time's up. Okay, now we're going to go on to our next question. And first up for this one, Hakeem Brown. The question is, adequate affordable housing, homelessness, and food insecurity are critical areas of need. How will you address these concerns?
And can you repeat the question? I just want to make sure I got that right.
Okay. Adequate affordable housing, homelessness, and food insecurity are critical areas of need. How will you address these concerns?
Well, number one, I think that you have to understand and acknowledge those concerns. I am the only person running for council and the only council member to host monthly town hall meetings to actually hear from the community. And something that we really need is housing. Housing is a human right. We can no longer sit back, make excuses about why it didn't pencil out. We have to affect change. And that's where leadership starts at, is actually affecting change so that we can build housing. On my watch, we actually are going to build workforce housing in North Vallejo at a discount to local teachers to hopefully attract better teachers for our school district. I think that we're going to have to sit there and not just have a navigation center, which we are building, and I voted yes on, but we have to be aggressive about catching up to the rest of the Bay Area and moving forward by
5 seconds.
housing that's affordable for everyone, as well as workforce housing. And we have not done that here in Vallejo. I think that we don't do enough to provide services for the community. I was an advocate against putting a tent city in a poor area of Vallejo, because once again, we don't need to stack poverty upon poverty. We need to work on creating jobs. Part of the problem is a lot of Vallejoans don't have access to jobs. Jobs shouldn't just be an abstract thought where we maybe or we don't. It has to be something that is essential to the
10
community.
seconds.
It's something that has been ignored for far too long. But I would say that we really need to focus on building more housing and do it aggressively. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanley Mills, you're up next. Same question. Should I repeat it?
Yes, please.
Adequate affordable housing, homelessness, and food insecurity are critical areas of need. How will you address these concerns?
Yes, thank you. I think one of the things that it's important for us to do is look at how these challenges in an overall wellness perspective. And so looking at our housing in a sustainable process, not just building. I think it's important, yes, for us to build and encourage building, but also working with our community where we can use what we already have in a way that it's a long-term progress. I think working with our community, that's important in a team perspective so that we can bring in many different ways of housing accessibility and food accessibility. You know, I think we have communities that don't have
45 seconds.
appropriate food, so that, you know, we have to look at how can we as a community look at how we value our citizens. If I in my community have 3 grocery stores and another community has none, we're not valuing all our citizens. And so we have to make a balance. We have to look at how do we look at each of our community section as part of being a valuable of our city. Sustainability is crucial. I mean, ways that we can assist, you know, food is bringing in local gardenings. I mean, I know it sounds like a small thing, but many areas are supporting their communities with having community gardens. So this is about looking at an overall wellness.
I'm sorry. Thank you very, very much. Mr. Kinney, you're up next. Same question.
Yes. Housing is the key without a doubt. As I've said before in other forums, and I'll say again, every time I get a chance, we should pass a resolution almost immediately saying that housing is a human right. Beyond that, we should take it much further. Beyond this community, it's not going to create any money by making that resolution, but it's going to lay down the trust and values we put and empowerment we want to put into our community. We have to house people. How can a mother educate her child if she doesn't have a home to do so? How can even a drug addict take care of himself if he doesn't have a home to go home to every night? We have to deal with this issue. In 2011, I was working with the 99% against some of these terrible inequities in
45
our
seconds.
community, and the fact that there was no money being taxes being paid by some of the corporate hires up. They were targeting our homeless people. I sat out in front of City Hall for 3 days objecting to this, and I was civil disobedience, an act of civil disobedience. I was thrown into jail for that. Within 3 months, they had a resolution passed to get 300 units of homeless housing units in San Diego, and since then they have built them. So I felt that was well worth it. Beyond that, since 2006, there has been no multi-unit families here. That is an
10
abysmal
seconds.
record, and this city has to change that. We have to get housing in here, and we have to make sure we're putting grants into the teachers and the public safety people who will live in our community, and we'll give them 15, 20, 30
Time's
grand
up.
to help buy their house if they stay here. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. McConnell, you're up. Do I need to
Thank
repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
Housing and homelessness go hand in hand. When I was on the planning commission for 8 years, we approved every housing project that came before us, and we built well over 2,500 houses in that time period. Since that time, the applicants have not been coming to the city to request building of houses. That's true throughout the entirety of the state of California. When you look at affordable housing, it's only made affordable because there are bonds and tax incentives to make that happen. The average cost of building an affordable unit in California is $420,000 per unit. Staggering. Instead of maybe building more units, maybe we need to look at rehabilitating some of our present housing, which could be done for a lot less than $420,000. But obviously we need housing
45 seconds.
You can't have people having a place to live unless you build. And our zoning code, which is coming before the council in December, addresses that, just as the general plan did that I orchestrated and spearheaded on, which now enables the zoning code to come into development. Food, yes, we definitely need to address that, especially in what is called City Council District Number 6, South Vallejo, Beverly Hills. That's a true food desert down there. But that means we have to make certain that in the zoning code that we
10
adopt in
seconds.
December, the proper parcels are set aside for the development of a supermarket or even a neighborhood area. If that doesn't happen, well, we will fail as council.
Time's up. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Williams is not here. A common objective of the League and the Coalition is to collaborate with each other as well as other organizations to foster communication and action networks in order to achieve mutual goals. The question to you, beginning with Ms. Hanley Mills here, is what actions will you take to bring diverse communities, social, economically, culturally, racially, and politically, together to create greater cohesiveness and inclusivity?
Thank you. That's a very important question to the challenges our city is facing. I believe in citizen oversight committees, and I believe that in every demographic and population of our community, we must have representatives of those of our citizens. And so implementing oversight committee in every single area of our city is crucial. And then bringing those people and leaders back to a collective roundtable that's culturally sensitive to the needs of each population. I think that is needed right now for our city. I mean, from the business sector to the disabled sector to the immigrant sector to the education sector. I mean, I think looking at how we solve our problems from a solution-based mindset, which look at the voices of many, not the voices of some, and we come together collectively with a common goal where all our citizens will be valued. And so when when everyone is in their own group to discuss that, and then bring it back so that we are able to look at our city as a whole, not a half, not a section, as a whole. Because if some are not profiting and some are not benefiting, all is not benefiting. So we have to look at how bring it in town hall meetings. I think town hall meetings are critical. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It goes next to, to Mr. Kinney. Same question. Should I repeat it?
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you. Yes, these are the same key issues that I will focus on right from the beginning. Number one is economic revitalization. We have to invest in our community. We have to invest in our people. Town halls are great. Getting out with actually all the different departments in our city is great too. We should have a mayor who goes out there. This is the bully pulpit. You can get yourself in the paper. Go out with our public works department. Go out there and show how we're really investing in our community. Take some of that $110 million budget and put it back into the community and not just into policing, which brings me to the key issue number two, reimagining policing. There's just far too much of our money goes into just guys who are there for violent crime. That shouldn't be happening. Should they be there backing up some of the social workers out in the community? Absolutely they should. But we have to reimagine that and really take some of that $50 million plus and put it back into the community that's going to stay right here. And then finally, the key issue as well is the beautiful and inclusive Vallejo. This is the most diverse city in all of America. We have to put these gorgeous people in this gorgeous place to work. Here we have waterfront property, beautiful bridges, Napa River, Sacramento River. We are the top of the bay. We're the first capital of California. Why aren't we exploiting that? The farmers market's nice. We should develop it even more. Get our art colony once a month brought into town. We should get the wine.
Time's up.
We have to redevelop our town.
Time's up. Mr. McConnell, same question.
Thank you for an excellent question, because it goes to the very essence of what a mayor is supposed to be doing. That is to be a collaborator, a person who brings sides together to explore new ideas. I had the privilege of serving on the city manager's budget advisory committee long before I got involved with the city on any other level. We were the ones who pointed out that the city was headed towards financial trouble. So as mayor, what you can do is you can organize a number of advisory groups across all of the groups that you mentioned to bring information and more especially research and new ideas to the mayor so that they can then formulate policy in cooperation with the city manager and present it to council for their consideration. We have a human relations commission. It's not been well administered, in my opinion. And I think that commission can be charged with a lot of the functions that you're talking about as well. But more than anything else, I'm an open door person. I'm a sole practitioner. You walk through the door of my office and here I am. I pick up my own phone. I'll do the same type of activities as a mayor. I'll be in the mayor's office every day. I will pick up my phone. I will return emails. I will go out and meet with people, either on self-initiated basis or at a request from any and all of them. We have to remember that a mayor represents everyone in the city, not just a select few interest groups, the back person. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question begins with Mr. Hakeem Brown. And that question is?
I never got a chance to answer this.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're supposed to answer. This is the same question.
Okay, so I think that's a great question. I think one of the things we've seen in my time on council is for the first time we've seen a council member actually address these issues. I'm the first council member to even mention the word systemic racism, and not just mention it, but really try to get money included into our budget to address inequities in our community. I led the charge to fire the entire Civil Service Commission due to a Me Too issue. And we had every female employee in the building that day. And the first time they voted, we did not support our female employees. And I championed bringing that back to vote. And we were able to fire the entire Civil Service Commission to send a message that we will not tolerate inequity. We will not tolerate sexism here in our city. But that has been the norm.
45 seconds.
I was the first council member to not just represent some parts of the community, but to represent the entire community. To do that, you actually have to show up. I show up in North Vallejo, I show up in South Vallejo, I'm at the schools, I'm at the different events for different cultures. And I think that unless you have a truly comprehensive purview of the city, you really cannot represent everyone. I pushed to get the Government Alliance on Racial Equity as a department in the city for our city. We're one of the very few Bay Area cities that does not have an Office of Equity.
10 seconds.
Though we have a lot of inequities in our communities. I champion that. So once again, I would bring real action to address these systemic inequalities instead of talk. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now we're going to the next question. And Mr. Kinney, you're first up on this one. Considering extensive community needs and finite financial resources, please identify your top 3 budget priorities and explain how will you address the unfunded pension obligation?
Yes, we definitely have to rebalance the entire budget. $110 million right now. If we can grow the bigger piece of the pie by bringing into those multi-unit families, by reinvesting in our business community, we will definitely grow the amount of funds we're bringing in. We should grow that 110. It should be 150. It should be 200 million. Growth is not the only issue, of course. Reimagining how we're doing that, how we're allocating that money, putting over 50% of it and then more into the fire department, which is going to get worse and worse and worse, which is why I brought a clean energy bill to Vallejo before, which I had to really work hard to make sure we got total support. These are the jobs of the future, which will bring more revenues into our population, into our community here. And we can put more and more into prevention and intervention and empowerment into the community, into the resources for youth and education. Making this place just a more beautiful place to begin with. So of course, we're gonna have to rebalance the budget. We're gonna have to bring in more revenues, and we're gonna have to make sure we're not putting so much in, 80% into just 2 different departments of our entire city. There is so much money that we could just redirect out of that. There's so much waste being spent there. Only 48 officers actually deal with crime. So how come there's 122 officers on the police department? Some of them even on the weed whacker patrol, which should be public works. That would cost $200,000 to $2 million. Lots of money.
Okay, Mr. McConnell, you're up.
Yes, my top 3 priorities. 1, we have to expand our tax base, no question about it. 2, with respect to expenditures, there are only 3 things you can do with expenditures. You can delay, you can deny, or you can defer. Everything else falls into one of those groups. And the third is with respect to the funding of the public money for retirement pensions, OPV. When I was on council with City Manager Keene, we devised a public trust, and we pay extra money every month into that public trust in order to pay down our public liability for pensions. It's like a mortgage. It's a 30-year mortgage. Well, it was a 30-year payout that we set out
45 seconds.
Past city councils did not control the budget, did not control giving things to their special interest. And as a result, this city wound up with a very large, substantial unfunded liability. It should have been addressed in bankruptcy. It wasn't. If we ever go back into it, it will be. And it will be successfully addressed this time, I can tell you that. But more than anything else, as long as we have the monies coming in and we control our costs, we will be able to retire that public pension benefit over a year, like paying down your mortgage a little faster every month than you would have otherwise. Instead of 30 years, hopefully we can pay it off in 25 or 20, but that's still a lifetime for a lot of people.
Thank you. Mr. Candidate Brown, you're up.
Yes. So I think my 3 budget priorities would, number 1, be public safety. It really has to be. I think that we, or at least the council before me over the last 8 years has really defunded the police, and it made no sense because we've only seen the amount of litigation and police related shootings go up. As our council de-invested from our police department, the amount of young Black men killed went up. So I think that we have to improve our public safety, as well as make sure that we are not only attracting quality officers, but putting enough resources on the streets to address the large amount of murders. It's very easy to say, let's not address public safety if there's not a lot of gun violence in your community. And in a lot of communities, particularly communities of color,
45 seconds.
which is something that I have pushed as a council member on youth opportunities, a tier 1 priority. We have to invest in our youth and education. We can no longer be blind to the fact that as we don't invest in our youth, our crime goes up and the amount of murders go up. When we don't invest in families, the effect that it has on the rest of the community. And last but not least, quality of life. I think that is trash, that is potholes, that is infrastructure and water infrastructure. But more importantly, we have to learn to grow the pie. That's something, as the only small business owner, that I understand. We can't always look at how small the pie is. We have to aggressively grow it and create more revenue for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Time's up. Candidate Hanley Mills, you're up.
Can you please repeat the question again? Thank you.
Yes, of course. Considering extensive community needs and finite financial resources, please identify your top 3 budget priorities and explain how you will address the unfunded pension obligation.
Thank you. I look at the budget wellness in terms of, I look at the budget in terms of a wellness perspective for our community. Community enrichment has many subtitles, and I think we have to look at our community as enriching it from a whole, because focusing on one area is not going to help the other areas. And focusing on community enrichment in terms of safety, peace, education, youth and family, and our business, that looking at our city as a whole is important. I think regardless to the pension, I think when we have areas of liability, we have to look at it not just giving everything all at once, but we have to look at it as part of our commitment. And a gradual commitment in doing that is important. But in the meantime, creating a budget that speaks to what the people of our city is asking for. It speaks to what the city is needing. And so from a wholeness perspective, I look at how do we look at all the areas on the community development and enrichment, and also looking at what our liabilities and responsibilities are. And so in doing that, we can put whatever commitments we have into that area of liability, but also put our funds into the area where it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. The next question, and we're going to start with Mr. McConnell on this one. What is your vision for growth for the city of Vallejo, and how do you plan to improve the economic vitality of the city? What factors need to be considered?
Well, the growth of the city was orchestrated through the creation of the general plan that I spearheaded and made certain that the community values were addressed in the establishment of those goals. And if you read the general plan and if you understand it, you can see where this city is headed. The zoning code, which will be adopted by the council in December, maybe January, will fill that out and provide for the economic development of many of our parcels. We need to cut and streamline our fees for a lot of our infill projects. There have been some duplexes and fourplexes that have been built in the last couple of years, but they've been very expensive and hard to pencil out. So if we cut some of our fees, it might help pencil them out. We need to negotiate with our labor
45 seconds.
groups to provide a lesser cost of labor for people who wish to develop these parcels that will improve the betterment of the city. But more than anything else, we need to be out there talking with ongoing business. to create an economic environment, you have to have a perception of the city that we are user friendly, that they know how to get through the process and they can understand how long it will take. And yes, the city was not user friendly when I came
10
here. My
seconds.
first time as an asset developer, I was handed a list that was unbelievable. We've streamlined that, but it needs to improve, and I will continue to make certain that it improves with hammering the city manager.
Time's up. Okay. Mr. Brown, you're up with that question. What is your vision for growth for the city of Vallejo? And how do you plan to improve the economic vitality of the city? What factors need to be considered?
That's a great question, and I also would also focus on my colleague Robert McConnell. As he said, I think the general plan that he headed, I think that our general plan shows a gross lack of understanding of the needs of our citizens. Creating a cafe community really does not lead to economic opportunity. We have a downtown that is a museum. We have no businesses there. We are not taking advantage of the waterfront property and people coming and going on our ferries. We have been too comfortable with not creating true economic development, and that is reflected in the general plan. Young Vallejoan can't feed their family working at a cafe. A young Vallejoan can't take care of their kids and make sure their kids get a good education.
45 seconds.
Doing essential jobs and not actually being able to create a livable wage job and having a livable wage job in our community. And that's held us back. I think that once again is a systemic racism. That is lack of understanding and for the needs of the average everyday citizen. And that has to change. We have to be aggressive about developing. No more excuses. No more looking around. As your mayor, the buck will stop with me. We will reprioritize the zoning to ensure that we can build. The buildings that are downtown were once new. We can't default to development. And that's something that I think that we need to take a look at is really zoning across the board and being aggressive about building and aggressive about economic development. Thank you.
Up. Okay. Candidate Hanley Mills, you're up.
Yes, my vision for Vallejo is prosperity and unity, showing value for all our citizens. I think that for me, looking at our arts and culture, we have a diverse community that is rich in culture that is not in any other community in the Bay Area. And we have to tap into that from every area, from business to entertainment, to education, looking at what our strengths are in a city is very important. And look at it from a solution-based mindset and how we can move forward. We have a lot of strengths that what we can do with those strengths is propel ourselves forward in a way that we're looking at all areas of our community. We, as a community, looking at our growth, who we are as citizens and what do we need. I think it's important how we speak about ourselves is how others are going to speak about us. We must begin to really address our community and the community at large around us, that we are a thriving community. We're building, and these are the things that we're doing to bring our city forward. When we speak negatively of our city, others will speak negatively of our city. They won't want to come to our city. I mean, it's important to look at our challenges, but it's important for us to speak as a city together, because bringing economic development, it's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kenny, you're up.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, number one, as we said from the beginning, the same old status quo, same old, trying to do the same old thing as our city goes further and further into despair, further and further into shambles, paying out millions of dollars, $5.7 million in the latest police misconduct. And there's 23 more of them in the pipeline. That's not growth. That is a black hole taking our city down. The same old just isn't working. That's why I did bring a clean new energy bill. I ramrodded it right through the city council, which basically didn't want to work with it. I got it through, and that is cheaper energy, cleaner energy, and jobs, jobs, jobs. There's your growth. There will be 3 or
45
4
seconds.
big cities here in the state of California that get ahead of this and actually invest in the infrastructure and then produce energy and then start selling it to other cities. And that will actually bring more revenues into our coffers and really start pushing things forward. Another one is we cut the marijuana tax base far too low. It's the cheapest place around. If they're coming in here, I'm all for having marijuana dispensaries here, but they should pay their fair share. Having to cut down to the lowest base rate in the entire state is just wrong. And housing,
10
since
seconds.
2006, same old, same old. No new housing units. Bring them here. This is a beautiful city. We're a ferry ride away from San Francisco. Bring that community over here, develop our downtown, make sure our waterfront is exploited. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The National Coalition of 100 Black Women, as well as the League of Women Voters, are committed to educating and advocating for the next generation. Our question to you is, what role could the city play in support of parents and local schools, especially in light of the pandemic? Mr. Brown.
Great question. Before I got on council's strategy was they had nothing to do with kids, which I found very appalling. I fought to get growing youth opportunities as a tier 1 priority with Councilmember Pippin Dew's support. We were the only council members to vote to support our kids and support mothers in our community. I spend time at least weekly at Vallejo schools, volunteering and mentoring our youth. I am a single father with a child in the Vallejo School District. They attend Cooper School. And so we can do much more to support our youth and our kids. We can support mentoring programs. The city can take it upon ourselves to build a youth facility, which has been glaringly lacking
45 seconds.
In our community. And that would be one of my priorities as your mayor. We can invest in programs like the Advanced Peace Project, which I brought to Vallejo, to address systemic issues for our youth and curbing gun violence. I think that once again, it really starts with council. Number one, you have to look at it as an issue, and you have to be able to say that those kids are our responsibility 24 hours a day, whether they're in school or not. And when we don't create housing, when we don't create economic development, when we don't create opportunity, we are doing those kids a disservice. When we don't put a viable force on the into our community, we are doing our families a disservice. So I think that we need to aggressively invest in our kids and education and Vallejo families.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Hanley Mills, you're next.
Can you please read the question again?
Yes. What role could the city play in support of parents and local schools in light of the pandemic?
I think education must be a priority. It's we must show that when a community is undereducated, it does not thrive. And we must show that education is critical to the city's survival, and giving that support to our parents. Our parents are overwhelmed. Our parents are the pandemic, in terms of doing online schooling, they're overwhelmed in that process. And I think what's important for the city to do is to come together with the district as one. Education and governing should never be separate, because we are educating the future of our city. And so bringing together the city and the district as one, even though they have different revenue sources, we must speak as one. We must speak in a manner that parents' wellness is critical to the wellness of our students and our teachers. We must speak as mayor that the importance of education, if that is not the number one, it affects every aspect of our community. Education is business. Education is entertainment. Education is arts. Education is everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kinney, should I repeat the question?
No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm glad you brought that question up. When I was in Japan, I had a school. I taught at the University of Notre Dame as a professor. I had 130 students in-house. I taught at National Micro Motors, Panasonic, Takeda Pharmacy. I did homestay exchange programs, Japanese students to Australia, Japanese students to America, Americans to Japan, Australians to. There you're dealing with parents, you're dealing with teachers, you're dealing with investments, you're dealing with insurance companies, you're dealing with all sorts of kids homesick for several days, and then they don't want to go back home. They're having such a great time. I've never had such an enriching and passionate teaching experience before in my life. These are kids who just love to see this. And that's what the opportunity we have to provide here. When I
45
first
seconds.
started investing more locally into the local community here, the first place I went was the school board. We really have to get that out. And I'm very glad Avino brought up about COVID. I mean, this is a terrible thing that kids have to learn through Zoom. I've watched the kids out there. I've spoken to them. They all missed the intercommunity with their fellow students, let alone the people who are in dire circumstances, economic circumstances, the mothers need to have those kids go to school so that they can get out into the work community. They need to have their kids there to help with the healthy issues,
10
with
seconds.
food issues, and of course, education for our future. I've spent my life in education. This is what it is about, investing in our kids. And there's no greater thing you can do than to get the parents involved with that. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. McConnell, you're up.
Thank you. I'm a product of the California public school systems. So I know that that system can work when it's run properly. I think unfortunately in California, at least, it's not being done as well as it could be. When I was a youth in college and in high school, I had jobs. They were available for youth. And that's one of the things the city needs to encourage is how to fund a youth study and youth work study program for youth, because by working, you learn not only job skills, but things like showing up on time and being courteous. Work study was a federal grant. And I think that if it was brought back through the support of our federal legislators, it would go a long ways towards addressing some of the needs of our youth. Beyond that, we have to have a cooperative school district. And during my time on council with two other school trustees, I was able to obtain 2 joint meetings between the council and the school district. But we had an administrator at the time who didn't seem to want to work with the city, so it fell upon deaf ears. I think that could be done. Another thing that the city and the school district can and certainly should be doing is forming a joint district to address the expenses on such things such as grounds maintenance, playgrounds, all the facilities where youth can go. Because by saving costs through a joint powers agreement, we can then take the money that is saved and put it into youth programs. And of course, that would include daycare.
Thank you. All right, Mr. McConnell, you get to go last and you get to go first with this next question. And the question is, how do you propose to control the gentrification that has come to the city of Vallejo, along with the increase in homelessness it has produced and the growing, skyrocketing housing costs?
Well, gentrification comes when anybody moves in who wasn't there before. It's a never-ending human process. Unless the government wants to step in and impose controls, then it's subject to the free market enterprise. So the question is, how far can the government go in implementing controls? And certainly some of the programs that we've brought in order to build will address the needs of the homeless, but the homeless have to be addressed with respect to their underlying cause. That is, whether it's mental, substance abuse, vocational uses, bad habits. So you have to have housing that will match their needs. And that's called transitional housing. And it's only with transitional housing that you can require them to participate
45 seconds.
in the programs that are needed. Gentrification, well, we have 2/3 of our homes in this city are single family owned properties. And unless we build more multi-families, which we need to do and which I support, then you're not going to see that ability to keep people in their neighborhoods. The general plan does address this as well, in that it does provide for housing across the board in all areas of the types
10
of needs
seconds.
that exist. And the zoning code to be adopted in December or January will round that out. But gentrification is a never-ending process, and unless we go into very rigid controls, we won't be able to stop it.
Okay. Mr. Brown.
Yes, can you please repeat the question?
How do you propose to control the gentrification that has come to the city of Vallejo, along with the increase in homelessness it has produced and the growing skyrocketing housing costs?
Well, I think that first you have to acknowledge it. I think that one of the things I've noticed is many of my colleagues have led the charge on gentrification and creating an environment where Vallejo families are forced out of their homes. As my colleague, Councilmember McConnell said, he led the general plan, which called for a cafe community. That's a direct attack on communities, and particularly communities of color. If we don't build housing, if we don't create opportunity, if we don't invest in education, then people will be forced out. That's called systemic racism. And I was the first council member to acknowledge that problem here in the city of Vallejo. After that, I took action. Number one, making growing youth opportunities a tier 1 priority. Number 2, enacting rent control for the
45 seconds.
Vallejo, and ensuring that housing as a human right was included in the conversation of our housing policy. Number 3, calling for a community benefit package to be included in every major development. This should have happened years ago, but like I said, the powers that be really champion gentrification. So I think that we have to fight against systemic racism by addressing root causes when it comes to investing in education, investing in housing, and creating opportunities and livable wage jobs for Vallejo families. We can no longer sit idly by and not acknowledge the elephant in the room, which is exactly what you said, which is state-led and city-led gentrification, when we need to reverse that by actually focusing and fighting for the values that Vallejo families hold.
Time's up.
Thank you.
Ms. Hanley Mills, should I read the question again?
Yes, please.
How do you propose to control the gentrification that has come to the city of Vallejo, along with the increase in homelessness it has produced and the growing skyrocketing housing costs?
Thank you. You know, one of the things for me, I think it's important is, and I've repeated this, is how do we value our residents? How do we value their basic needs? Housing is a basic need. You know, rent control is important because we have many vulnerable citizens who, with the skyrocketing rent, they cannot afford to stay here and they cannot afford to live here. And those coming out of any kind of housing crisis need to be able to have a stable environment. I moved to Vallejo as a young 31-year-old, and I owned my home. And I think it's important to have opportunities of investment for our community, have education of how our citizens can invest within their community. And it is possible. It is possible. I did it, and many others have done it. And so I think creating an avenue of investment where we are educating our citizens of how to become investors in their community is critical. I do believe that, you know, we people will have housing, and we have to have a community that invites other people, but we cannot in that process not look at who we have here. That's valuable, and it's important for them to also have the avenue to be able to afford to live in our community. So coming together as a community is critical. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kinney.
Yes, housing is a human right. We need to pass that resolution right off the bat. And again, this is the same old status quo city council, which hasn't built a single multifamily unit since 2006. That is just an abysmal record. How gentrification per se isn't bad as long as you keep growing more and more units. Then you have more and more people who have places to live, and that is a human right. That is the basic essence of everything that has brought civilization upon us, and that's what we have to build as a city. Beyond that, we have to take it much further. We have to turn it into a movement. We have to work with the whole coalition of people here in the Bay Area who again, are not building housing. It's this entire Bay Area.
45 seconds.
People are against building high-rise units near the transportation hubs, which is what the working class really needs. And every city that's ever been built since time immemorial has known that you have to do. You have to build near the transportation hubs. When there's a river, you build near the rivers. When there's a railroad track and a station, you build near those. Basically, the whole area is trying to stop it. Then we have to take it directly to the state, and we have to take it beyond that. We have to build an entire movement, and we have to take it all to the federal level where there is multiple monies, which keeps being handed out to the bankers. We have
10
to take
seconds.
that money and invest it back into housing and making sure housing is a real human right brought to all people. When you build those units, you will have
Time's up.
places for people to live, and you will do it sustainably.
Time's up, sir. Okay, thank you. Well, that concludes the questions that we had, and we're going to get to the questions from the audience in just a minute. But first of all, I'd like to apologize to the candidate, Kanisha Williams-Bailey, who was having problems with her computer and wasn't able to join us. I'd also like to extend that apology to all of the people who were having problems connecting to our link. It is unfortunate, but and just so that you can watch it though on the YouTube channel on the website to see how your candidates responded to the questions that were put before them regarding becoming mayor of Vallejo, the city of Vallejo. All right, so I'm going to read a question from the chat that I got here. And it's this question is, will you, and it's to everybody, and we're going into reverse order here. We're going to start with Mr. McConnell and then Mr. Kinney on up the order there. So the question, oh, let me see, where was that question? Will you address the health risk for the combination of COVID, bad air quality due to smoke, and heat wave? We can't be in a public place with AC, can't be outside, and can't boil in our homes.
I'm not totally sure I understand the question, but the way we address COVID is we work very closely with the county health department, who has the authority to dictate what that does. Well, we already have passed an ordinance that requires the wearing of masks in public. We constantly harp on the need to social distance, wash our hands, and be cognizant of where we're going. With respect to the air quality, well, we need to work more closely through the Bay Area Air Quality Control Board in the proper part of the city. And most especially, we need to take a very close look at the proposal to rehabilitate Phillips 66 plant into biodegradable oils instead of petroleum based, which theoretically is supposed to improve our air.
45 seconds.
But we need to watch it very closely. As far as the heat wave goes, well, I think you're talking about the greenhouse effect here. And I'm a huge proponent of electrical vehicles. I think that is something we need to move forward on as rapidly as our economy will permit. I would like to see the smart train brought over from Marin County in order to address the commuter needs of people who live here and work in Marin and Sonoma counties. It will also improve our transportation to the recreational areas of Napa County. So a combination of things on the three fronts will address and hopefully resolve or at least reduce some of those exposures that we all have.
Okay, Mr. Kinney.
Yes, well, unfortunately, the toxicity we see outside, we keep seeing in City Hall as well. I hear people trying to claim that they were about clean energy. Nobody on the city council would support the clean energy bill we brought and 4 other bills, including electrical vehicles, that we brought to them, and they wouldn't look at them. We literally had to go to Al Gore's Climate Reality Project and down into Richmond to the California Progressive Alliance, which I am a original. I'm sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that.
You weren't.
We literally had to bring in outside people to try to get this back to the city council, which we did by going directly up to the mayor and the city manager, and brought it back and got unanimous vote finally on clean new energy. Our environment is burning around behind us, and the city council just wouldn't react. We got it passed. It will be cheaper, it will be cleaner, it will be green, and it is jobs, jobs, jobs for the future, which we need to invest in. So again, we have to look at this realistically. The big picture world is COVID wouldn't have happened either if it hadn't been for global chaos, global warming chaos and climate catastrophe brought upon us. And we got to move beyond this out of touch city council, which just doesn't want to deal with this. They want to put their heads in the sand.
10 seconds.
I have brought that legislation before. I will continue to bring it, and I will continue to invest in the future and sustainable, clean jobs for our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hanley Mills.
Yes, can you please repeat the question?
Okay, let me see if I can find it. Will you address the health risks for the combination of COVID, bad air quality due to smoke, and heat waves? We can't be in public places with AC, can't be outside, and can't boil in our homes.
Yes, thank you. It's unfortunate that we're in this crisis at the moment. I think there's many ways in terms of assisting our citizens in terms of having a more wellness in their lives. I think inviting solar programs into our communities so that it can be affordable, because many people cannot afford, you know, cooling equipment because of the energy. And so inviting organizations to come into our city that provide affordable and grants. There's grants in our government that we can allocate so that we can bring that into our city. I think increasing the greenery around our community. I mean, planting trees. Yes, we have a lot of burning, but I think greening our environment reduces some of the heat that we're experiencing and address the environmental issues that's taking place. COVID is unfortunate, and supporting our communities in continued efforts and increasing efforts, that this is a safety risk. And so wearing masks and providing all the other areas for our city. I think it's very important that when we have any type of issue, that we provide opportunities and exposure for our citizens to have. Thank you.
Mr. Brown, should I repeat that question if I can find it again?
Yes, please. I'm sorry.
Okay. Will you address the health risks for the combination of COVID, bad air quality due to smoke, heat waves? We can't be in public places with AC, can't be outside, and can't boil in our homes.
So yes, I think that number one, we have to at least understand the problem exists. I'm the only person running for mayor who actually hosted a COVID-19 workshop for our seniors, for small businesses, for those who are unemployed, as well as for Vallejo parents and our kids. And I think that one of the things that we've seen is COVID-19 disproportionately affects minorities and communities of color, Black and brown people. It disproportionately affects those who are homeless. And once again, Black and brown people are disproportionately make up the number of homeless. And I think that one of the things that a city must do is be compassionate and address these systemic issues. We have to create more opportunity. We have to create more housing. We have to invest in our kids and education so that when we do come through some very tough times, that we're prepared. The fact that we have not done that has really left us and really left our citizens unprotected. And I think that more important than anything, a economic resurgence, economic development resurgence, and promoting, lifting everyone up will be able to help our community. I think that one of the things that I've been doing is being an advocate for our seniors. I'm the only person running for mayor who actually attends tenant association meetings for
10 seconds.
For the legacy senior legacy homes, which is senior housing. And so we actually have to get into the community and learn what are the needs of those who are disproportionately affected by this pandemic and heat wave. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Brown, we're going to lead you off with the next question from our audience. And that question is, there is an active sex trade industry in Vallejo. This industry is often violent toward women. What are you going to do to decrease the amount of sex trafficking activity in Vallejo?
Great question. As a Vallejo kid and someone who's lost people that I grew up with and high school classmates to sex trafficking and death, this is something I'm very passionate about. As your mayor, one of the first things I'm going to do is bring back our sex trafficking commission. I tried to bring that back when I was elected and was told that we didn't have a sex trafficking problem, which I thought to be very interesting, just seeing the amount of young sex trafficking victims, particularly young women of color who are underage on Vallejo streets and have been there for decades. No one has ever addressed that issue. That's a quiet little secret that with everything else that we're doing in the community, we're not addressing. I'm the only person running who regularly attends the Solano County Sex Trafficking Coalition. And I think that working with other agencies throughout Solano County to hold perpetrators accountable is
45 seconds.
The city of Vallejo needs to step up to the plate, and I've been championing that. I think that we also need to sit there and take a look at what are we doing to reach out to the victims of sex trafficking. I've attended numerous community meetings along with our chief of police and was able to work with the community to address these issues and really go after Johns. But we have to do more to address the fact that we're not helping those sex trafficking victims. But once again, I'm not surprised that in our community, but we have not invested in education and created opportunities for young Vallejoans, particularly young women in our community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hanley Mills?
Yes, thank you. I think it's important for us to look at how do we value the women of our community. When we place value above anything else, we begin to act in a way that protects our women. And I think looking at how do we address perpetration, oftentimes women are, the victims, and they're the one who are prosecuted. So how are we prosecuting those that are perpetrating these acts of violence? That's critical. If you're addressing the women, and I consider them victims, if we're arresting the victims and allowing the perpetrators to go free, they will find more victims. And so that's an issue. And it has to be, a zero tolerance in our community. Like that is not, we're going to come down very forcefully on those who are bringing that type of violence into our community, and partner with agencies that house victims and treat victims. That is critical for us to begin to speak where we value victims in our community. And this is a victim-based violent act on our young women, and there's young men too. So I think that's something for us to really look at in terms of, addressing this as a core issue of violence in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kinney.
Yes, thank you. I cannot agree any more wholeheartedly with both of the prior commentators there. Hakeem, you have my extreme sympathies if that's really happened to anyone that you know, and I agree wholeheartedly. We have to put everything we have in our police force into such issues. This is just intolerable. It should no way be accepted. As Avidala said, that there's no greater value in our lives than the lives of our people, and there's no greater task for any mayor or any candidate running for any office than to make sure they support that. But again, this gets back to the key issue of reimagining safety and community policing. How come there's over $1 million plus, maybe 2 million being spent on the weed whacker patrol, which is basically unconstitutional rights of coming by one guy, have an opinion about your home, and then you have to pay $450 just to get yourself out of an appeal process. And this is being run by one of the city council members who's supposedly a lawyer. He should know that that's unconstitutional. Stop that. Take that money and put it into real policing. Violent crime, and absolutely sex trafficking and any sort of enforcement or coercion of people is absolutely that. It is violent crime and it should be dealt with as such. More importantly, in the big picture, we have
10
to
seconds.
invest in these communities and the education of them, in revitalizing the jobs and giving people other opportunities out there. Take that money being spent so much just on enforcement and put it into prevention. Thank you.
Okay.
I have
Mr.
more.
McConnell?
Well, this is a problem that's never gone away for centuries, and we do need to address it in a cultural setting. There are some groups that believe that this type of activity is perfectly permissible. And I would condemn anybody who thinks that, not only with respect to the customers, but the people who put the women into these positions where to exploit them, because those are despicable things. The way we address it is through some educational process to make people realize that this is a denial of human rights. This is wrong. This is morally corruptible, and it suggests more about the character of the person who puts these women
patrol instead of the sexton.
Who put these women into difficulty than it does about the people who are actually in the trade. There have been a large number of
45 seconds.
neighborhood groups to counsel the women and to remove them from the streets. I think we need to double down on that. It's a health issue as well. So there's so much that we can do and need to do in this area. It will require financial resources with which to do that. And the most affordable one is education, to make people realize just what a reprehensible activity this is. We can also, of course, use license plate readers. We can use the zoning department and the building department to go after the facilities where these matters are conducted.
10 seconds.
Take the approach the federal government does to make them forfeit their premises if they are engaged in this type of activity. So the enforcement needs to be increased as well, but in selected areas.
Right. Okay, that is all the time that we have for questions from the audience. However, I just want to make sure that the audience realizes that if we didn't get to your question, it will be submitted to the candidates and their responses will be posted on the league's website so that you will get a response to your question. We don't want you to think that we're ignoring your question, but the time is running out and we have to make sure that the candidates give a closing statement. And
can I ask a question? Cornisha wasn't able to get on. Can we at least read a statement from her? Can she log that in or something? She should have a chance, an opportunity to be able to present if it was just a technical difficulty beyond her control. I'm sorry, you're the moderator, but I just feel that's fair. It's happened to me before too, and it's not fair.
We haven't heard from Ms. Kanisha that she's actually on at this point.
Right, can't she like post a chat statement and then someone can read it? Something like that?
I think we can include a statement from her on our website along with any answers to questions that come in post-event. But she had all of the information, and someone was trying to log on to the Zoom side, but from the name of that video cam, I couldn't tell who it was. I sent her request to identify herself, and she never did. And then eventually
I see.
Right.
My apologies. Thank you for what you've done.
There's no question we wouldn't have done something to make sure that Ms. Kanisha was informed about what was happening.
Sure.
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm not disparaging anybody. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to our closing statements. And and remember, you have 2 minutes for the closing statements. And Mr. McConnell, the order is reversed. So we're going to start off with Mr. McConnell.
Thank you again for organizing this presentation. I know you're interested in very good government, as am I. I actually have the background, work, and professional experience and the needed even temperament to make the office of the mayor of Vallejo excel in accomplishments. With decades of involvement as a trial lawyer and especially a financial services lawyer, my experience with employment at the city, county, state, and federal levels, I understand how government works and how it should work. I not only understand government, but I also speak legalese and bureaucrat. I entered council because of the hard financial times of the city. To exit bankruptcy, the bankruptcy court placed on this city a number of conditions that it had to fulfill in the following 5.5 years. It wasn't until the end of 2017 that we finally were able to comply with all of those requirements and begin to address the many long delayed needs of this city. but with my financial and legal knowledge, I was able to be a steady, reliable voice of reason to ensure Vallejo did not wind up returning to bankruptcy. Had the city stayed from the straight and narrow over those years, the bankruptcy court put those limitations on what we could spend for the city. Along the way, we were able to create popular participatory budgeting, grow jobs, increase the police force, pave roads, improve our financial position, create reserves, bring in economic development, put in LED lights, which reduce the cost of the city. So a number of accomplishments have been made along the way, but I will use my many skills learned as an attorney, business owner, a formally trained mediator, and a veteran to facilitate smart management of the stressed budget and the entire city. Most importantly, as your Vallejo mayor, I will always remember I work for the benefit of all of you, not just a few select groups. I thank you for your consideration and applaud all that you do to move our city forward, and I hope to join with you. Thank you. Vote McConnell for mayor. And my phone number you asked for is 707-642-4500.
Okay. Next up is Mr. Kinney.
Yes, I want to say thank you very much to the League of Women Voters. I think you guys should still be doing the nationally televised debates like you were way back when. This is a wonderful opportunity. It's too bad about the technical glitch of our lives we are in with this COVID, and that I think should have disrupted that. But thank you very much for putting all the great work into this. Again, if you want the status quo, if you want the same old, you can walk into it like me, into the city council, and see the toxic atmosphere there. You can walk out of your house and see the toxic air all around us, and the city council that would do almost nothing about this until we literally ramrodded it right through them, and they had no choice, and they passed it unanimously finally after we did all the heavy lifting. Again, this is about economic revitalization. This is about reimagining public safety. This is investing in our community, not just enforcement. We need also prevention. We need also intervention. And most importantly, we need empowerment. As Avanella says, we need enrichment of our community. We need to bring everybody in together. We need the diversity and the beautiful, gorgeous people and the resources of this community to come out. This is just an unbelievably gem of an area. We have Mare Island, we have the top of the bay here, we have 2 different rivers running through, gorgeous bridges, and so many good, diverse people here. How come our city council and our mayor aren't bringing these to their fullest potential, investing and exploiting in our resources to the maximum? This has to be done. We are literally a ferry ride away from one of the richest, the center of the internet universe right now is a ferry ride away, and we're stepping stones away to Sacramento and Napa. Why aren't we exploiting that? We got to get the wine industry down here. We got to marry it together with our beautiful art colony down here, and we got to make sure we do reimagine and put our investment back into our community. Everybody in Vallejo has a right to enjoy this gorgeous place we are. Thank you very much. John B. Kenny for mayor.com. Thank you. 4 is the numeral.
Okay.
John Kenny for mayor.com.
All right. Now we go to Ms. Hanley Mills.
Thank you. I thank you to the League of Women Voters and to our community. And also thank you for your presence of my fellow candidates. Our city needs transformation, and transformation is looking at our mindset, looking at our language, looking at how we value our citizens, and from the core in terms of our economy. That's important for us to look at. Transforming is creating an environment of change, creating an environment of success, creating an environment of prosperity, creating an environment where we value education. Transforming, it's changing the way that we've been doing things that's in a crisis mode and going forward in a solution base and in a preventative way. Transforming is looking at every aspect of our community as valuable and having a voice that brings to our community. We have a diverse community, and we must begin to look at all the voices of those community. Our entertainment, our education, safety and peace, arts and culture. That is who we are. That is who Vallejo is. And we must, as a team, come together. as your mayor, I can bring that voice. I can bring that face where I can speak to every area of our demographic. That's important. All of our citizens must feel that they can come to the mayor and speak to them. Not some of us, not half of us, but all of us. And that is what I bring. I bring a face that can speak to every single individual of our community. We must look at our community as beginning the transformation of our success from the core. And so that all of us, all citizens, can begin to feel an overall wellness and prosperity. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And next is Mr. Hakeem Brown.
Yes, first off, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters, Solano County, for hosting this powerful forum. Number one, I need your vote. I need you all to show up to the polls. You can learn more about my campaign at HakeemBrown.com. I am going to bring a unique perspective as your mayor, as a Vallejo native, as a Vallejo business owner, and most importantly, as a Vallejo father with a child in the school district. I'm going to bring a unique perspective as someone who's fully invested in this community. I would like to thank my fellow candidates that are running. As I've said, we've heard a lot of good ideas, but once again, we need more than ideas. We need a mayor who will take action. And I have been, in my time on council, a man of action. We've heard some great ideas about education, but I'm the only council member who spends time regularly in Vallejo schools, works with principals, works with our kids, and provides scholarships for Vallejo students, with 75% of those going to women of color. We've heard a lot of great ideas about police reform, but I'm the only council member, the only person running who's actually worked to bring a civilian oversight commission to the city of Vallejo and work with the police chief to address police reform and improving public safety. We've heard some great ideas about housing, but I'm the only candidate running who actually championed rent control and worked to get workforce housing over in North Vallejo to also support our school district. We've talked about trash and heard great ideas about trash. I'm the only candidate running who actually hosts community cleanups every other month. We've talked about reaching out to our community, and I'm the only candidate running who actually hosts monthly town halls for our. So I would just ask you all to please vote for me. As your mayor, I will bring a no excuses, can do mentality and get the job done. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before I turn it over back to our host to close things out, I'd like to say thank you to the Oakland Bay Area chapter of the National Coalition of Black Women who co-sponsored this event with us. It was a pleasure working with you and getting to know that we have some great partners in providing civic engagement and participation to our citizens.
Absolutely.
And I want to say thank you to the audience for joining us. And just don't forget, Election Day is November the 3rd, 2020. November 3rd, 2020. Vote as soon as you can. And please, please vote. And remember, the League, it has also on our website, which I'm sure the host will tell you, all sorts of information that can help you make an informed decision. That is our purpose, and that's why we were here today, and we hope you enjoyed it. So I'm going to turn it back over to Anita and Niles. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all that have participated. You guys were very inspiring. I enjoyed each and every one of you. I wish I could vote for you all. And I wish you lots of luck and success. And this has been a wonderful, wonderful forum, my first. So thank you for making it a success. Now, I would like to know if my co-host and president of the League of Women Voters would like to make a comment of any type. So now I'm gonna give the floor to you.
All right, well, thanks. It's great. It's a great forum, really well attended on the audience side too. So that was you all were, I agree with Anita. I wish I could vote for all four of you. It's been a great one. I want to thank you. I'd also like to thank the League members and Regina from National Coalition of 100 Black Women for their work in putting this thing on. It's been really great. So thanks a lot. And Again, last word, we encourage people, we will submit all of the unanswered questions to the candidates, and we will post their responses on our website. So look for that.
Uh-oh, more
I guess
work.
with that, we will wrap up this forum. Thank you very much.